All right, you guys, so in this case, we're going to go ahead and do lesson 7.1, which is rotation. In this case, students can transform geometric figures using rotation. Definition in this case, guys, rotation talks about a movement, in this case, of a point or plane into a cycle around a certain point. So in this case, we are going to be having a center, and we will be rotating that object, in this case, about that center. So let's go ahead and start off by writing this down. In this case, for example, as you guys can see here, I do have a center P, and A in this case represents my image, which is my starting point. And in this case, if I do a rotation, in this case, my new point would now be A prime, and it's known as the pre-image. All right. So once again, we're rotating about this point, and our new rotation here would be found up there. So go ahead and copy that down. Now let's go ahead and move on to this next one here, guys. Move on to this next one. And in this case, we are talking about a rotation. So if we were to be looking at a clock, in this case, obviously the clock just started up here, and then we move into this direction here. So if this is our clock, this is our clock once again. Clockwise means moving with the clock, so we're moving in this direction to the right and down. So we're still moving right, we're moving right. This in this case represents our clockwise rotation. So once again, clockwise is going this direction. That's clockwise right there. Now, if we want to go ahead and counterclockwise, in this case, counterclockwise is going against the clock. So in this case, instead of actually going right, we're actually going left. And this would be representing our counterclockwise direction. Now, whenever we're talking about moving or rotating, in this case, an object clockwise, our degree in this case, or our angle, will be known as a positive angle here. So we were going to have a positive angle if we move counterclockwise. If we're moving clockwise, in this case, it is going to be represented by a negative. All right. Now, in this case, I do want to go ahead and add a few things here. In our circle, in this case, the entire circle does represent 360 degrees. So all of this here is a measurement of 360. Now we could actually break this into 4 different planes. For example, like our graph, in this case, we have 4 different quadrants. So in this case, if we start off at 0 here, I'm gonna go ahead and do it in green. If we start off, let's say at 0, this would be our starting point, let's say 0 degrees. If I go up from here, so going this direction, that is going to be a 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. So in this case, 90 degree would be this here. That is a 90-degree angle, 90-degree angle. So from there, guys, that is 90 degrees. Now, if we decide to do, in this case, like a semicircle, which is half of our circle here, I'll go ahead and do it in blue. All of this is actually going to represent 180. So 180 does form a line, and it would be this entire angle here. Once again, it's obviously greater than 90. It's actually 2 times of 90. But any values in this case that you find in between 90 and 180 would be found in this direction here. It would be found here. Now, once again, another way I like to do this is I also like to break the 90s in half. So for example, half of 90 in this case would be found here, and that would be about a 45-degree angle. Let me go ahead and erase this. All right, about a 45-degree angle there. 45-degree angle. And then from there, since we're going to be determining the type of rotation, if it does look like a smaller angle, and this is actually, all of this is a Q until we get to right. But if you do see that the angle in this case is much smaller, then it's between 45 and less. If it looks like less than half of 90, then it's obviously going to be between 0 and 45. But anything between 45 and 90 does follow this range here. Now, in this case, if I were to cut the half of 90 and 180, that should be about 135. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do a line there. And that would be about 135 degrees. So that's another way you could also distinguish it. I like to cut it in more than a few parts here. So in this case, we do have 4 parts. So that once again, we start off at 0, go on to 90, and then 80 would be a semicircle. And obviously halves of them would be 45 and 135. Now if we go down here, in this case down here, which would be starting from 0 and going down here, which is making this like 3/4 rotation, that is going to be 270 degrees. 270. And if we were to complete the entire rotation, that would actually give us 360. So entire rotation in this case would be 360 degrees. All right. So let's just go ahead and keep that in mind. Now in this case, guys, if we were to move clockwise, well, we're actually going to go ahead and see that when it's moving clockwise and we have negative values in this case, negative values. So let's go ahead and actually go on to here. And this once again talks about the angle rotation. If you're going in the counterclockwise direction, which means, for example, going from this point to that one, it is going to be a positive angle. And if we decide to go clockwise, in this case, we would go from this point to that one, and we would have a negative angle. So let's go ahead and get started here, guys. In this case, this is actually talking about a point that we're going to be rotating. So it's point P is rotated negative 90 degrees, and the center rotation is indicated. So they are telling us that this point does represent our center, and we want to go ahead and actually rotate our point P from the center 90 degrees. Now, because our angle in this case is negative, that's actually telling us that we're going to be going in the clockwise direction. So in this case, we're moving this direction. Now, if I were to connect both of these points, if I were to connect B and I were to connect A in this case, question here is which one looks more like a 90-degree angle? B in this case would have this here, and then A in this case would have that angle. And in this case, the greater angle would actually be A, so this one would represent our negative 90-degree rotation. Now, we could use a protractor in this case, guys, but I mean, we don't really have one in hand, but if you do have one and you want to use it, go ahead. But most of this is based on what you're seeing, so it's more of a visual rather than playing around with the protractor here. So let's go ahead and go on to the next one, and here's the next one. Now in this case, it says triangle A prime B prime C prime is the image of triangle ABC under rotation about the origin of 0, 0. Now, important thing, guys, they're telling you your point of rotation, which means that we will be rotating our shape in this case from 0, 0, from our origin. Now, one thing you do have to remember is that we always start with our original triangle or original point in this case, which is AB, triangle ABC, and we're trying to go to triangle A prime B prime C prime. So we're actually trying to go from this triangle to this one here, okay? So then in this case, all I'm gonna do is I wanna go ahead and connect one of the points in my original triangle with the new one in the second one. So for example, if I use B, let's say I use B here. I'm gonna go ahead and connect my line here with B. And then I'm gonna go ahead and also connect it with B prime. Now, once again, notice the direction we're moving. We're actually moving in this direction here. We're going actually counterclockwise. Now, if we're going counterclockwise, our angle of rotation in this case will be positive. So that being said, I could actually eliminate these two options, and now I'm just focused on my positives. Now, once again, guys, one way for you guys to do it is go ahead and see if you can create a 90-degree triangle here, or angle, I'm sorry. So if I do, for example, draw a line up here, that would be representing my 90 degree. Now, question for you guys, is this line here, or is this line here more closer to the 90 degrees or to the 0? 0 would be on this side here. And the answer in that case is it's actually closer to 90. So our answer in this case would be the 60 degrees. All right. And if you don't know how 90 is, go ahead and actually draw a line. So from in this case, our center, which was 0, 0, and our original point B, I'm actually going to go ahead and draw a line. And that's going to be 180. So half of this line would be representing the 90, which is that there. Okay, so if you guys don't know how to draw out the 90, go ahead and draw a straight line from your center of rotation and the point you're choosing, and then go on from there. Okay, and once again, I could do the same thing with the other points. So I'm going to go ahead and actually erase this here. And let's say if I choose another point, let's say I choose A. So if I go from A, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line in this case, going through our origin. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my 90 degrees. 90 degrees is actually half of that. That kind of looks straight, kind of doesn't. And then since we're doing A, I'm going to go ahead and do my other line with A prime. So once again, in this case, guys, this actually doesn't look straight, but let me fix that. All right, that looks more or less like a straight 90-degree angle. So in this case, once again, we're trying to determine this angle, and that would be a 60 degrees. Okay, so here is the next one. All right, and we have quadrilateral A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime is the image of quadrilateral A, B, C, D. And it's under a rotation of about point Q. So our center of rotation in this case, guys, is going to be Q. And once again, we want to go ahead and determine the angle of rotation here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually first choose any point. Let's say I want to go ahead and choose A, or we could even choose D. Let's go ahead and choose D. So D is actually here. Let me go ahead and use a different color. D is here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually draw a line through D. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. All right, more or less. And in this case, once again, it's from my center, which is Q, and the point I chose to work with, which is D. So I'm going to go ahead and connect actually the line, a line in this case, from the center to D prime. Now, in this case, guys, question for you here is, what does this angle look like? Or, well, before we determine that, what direction are we moving? In this case, we're going from this point to that one. So we're actually moving in a clockwise direction, which means we have a negative angle. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the positives here. All right. Now, in this case, between a 60 and a 90-degree angle, this actually looks much bigger than a 60 degrees, so I'm actually going to go ahead and go with the 90-degree angle. Our answer in this case would be 90 degrees just because that does look like half of 180. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and move on to this next one. And the next one talks about rotation of shapes. So I do want to go ahead and start off with some formulas here. Now, in this case, guys, starting off with the 90-degree rotation, if we have a point, for example, I'm just going to go ahead and make up a random point. Let's say A in this case is the point 2, 5. If I do a 90-degree rotation, or even a negative 270 rotation, because that would be the same exact formula for that one, negative 270 there, A prime in this case is going to actually switch the values for X and Y, and Y in this case is going to be negative. So then my new point for A prime is a Y. So our Y in this case was 5. So that's going to go here. And then X in this case is going to be the new Y. So it's going to go there. Now, the only thing different in this case with this one is that the Y is going to be negative. So it's going to be a negative 5 and a 2. Once again, we're switching the order for X and Y, and the Y is negative. Now, let's go ahead and just try one more. And I'm going to go ahead and let's say I have B in this case, and B is, I don't know, 7, negative 3. So for B prime, once again, we're going to go ahead and switch the order for X and Y. So in this case, Y is negative 3 and X is 7. But in this case, our old y is now positive. So our answer in this case would be 3, 7. All right, so rotation of negative 270 and 90 is the same thing. So let's go ahead and move on to this next one, which is talking about a rotation of 180. And once again, rotation of 180 is going to be the same exact thing as a rotation of negative 180 degrees. So in this case, guys, if they ask you to do a rotation of 180 or a negative 180, what's going to happen to our point in this case is that they're going to go ahead and basically switch signs. So they don't switch the order, but they do switch the signs on them. So for example, if I have, let's say A prime is negative 5 and 3, or actually not A prime, but A, then A prime in this case is going to now be a positive 5 and a negative 3. Once again, if we compare these two, this was a negative 5, and the new rotation here, it's going to be a positive. And this one was a positive. Now in the new one, it's a negative. Okay. And let's go ahead and just do one more. Let's say we're doing B. Say we're doing B here. And that's going to be negative 4 and negative 11. So then B prime in this case is going to be a positive 4 and a positive 11. Right? So here is the next one, and this one talks about a 270 degree rotation. Once again, 270 is the same thing as saying negative 90 degrees. Now, in this case, guys, with the 270 rotation, if we're given our point X and Y, when we do that transformation, we're going to go ahead and switch the positions for X and Y, and the old X is now going to be negative. So let's go ahead and do some examples. If we do A in this case, let's say we do negative 8 and 6 for A prime. My new X value for A prime is my old Y, and old Y in this case was 6. And in this case, my new Y value is the old X, so that's negative 8. But the only thing different in this case is that we're going to go ahead and switch the signs for that old X, which was now 8. All right, let's go ahead and do that one more time with B. And let's say it's 7 and 3. And B prime in this case, once again switching the order, and the X becoming negative. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to, with knowing this, we're going to go ahead and do this example here. Now, in this case, they're telling us that we have a quadrilateral PONY, or pony, is rotated about the origin 180 degrees. So they're telling us our rotation in this case, guys, is 180 degrees, and it is being rotated about the origin. Rotated about the origin here. So at 0, 0. So now, in this case, the formula for 180 degrees, all it was doing with our values in this case for our point is that it was actually switching the signs of our point. So if we had X and Y, then the rotation there would be negative X and negative Y. So I'm actually going to go ahead and write my points down. So I have Y, or P, is negative 2, 7. O is negative 2, 3. N is negative 6, 3. And Y is negative 5, 6. All right. Now, with this rotation in this case, if we want to go ahead and find P prime, we're going to go ahead and switch the signs for both of our points. So now we have a positive 2 and a negative 7. So that would be my new point. Moving on to O prime, it's going to be a positive 2 and now a negative 3. And once again, this is all based on the formula we have up here, which I highlighted in yellow. And next one, N prime, is going to be now a positive 6, and Y is going to be a negative 3. And then Y prime is going to be a positive 5, negative 6. And those would be our new points in this case. Now, if I were to plot those points in this case, let's go ahead and actually plot them. I have 2, negative 7 is down here. down here. And then this is P prime. And then we have 2, -3 is up here, and that is O prime. And then we have 6, -3 is here, and that is N prime. And then Y prime is 5, -6, which is there. So if we connect these, we are going to have our shape rotated at 180 degrees.